Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Trey Hodge with TreyMixes.com, and we're going to continue our mixing from scratch tutorial here as we hit a song all the way from start to finish. And the first episode was about basic setup and getting your setup day right for prep and trying to make things easier for you. Today we're going to talk about edits. We're just going to do some basic edits where I've identified a couple of spots in the song, and we're going to talk about moving things to get timed up right to where your mix is really tight, and a couple of pitch correction things, and go over kind of how I do pitch correction in Logic. But these ideas are very similar for other pitch correction technology like Auto-Tune or Melodyne. So let's jump right in and get started on this. So when you're doing a mix and you start listening, you may notice that things aren't quite as lined up or as perfect as you would like them to be. Guitar hits that come a little late, or drum hits that come a little early, vocals that are not quite as tight with the rhythm as they could be. And honestly, the difference between a pro-sounding mix, a pro-sounding song, and a really amateurish thing is not having those edits tight on your finished product, not having a really cohesive, tight sounding band. And, that's not a slam on musicianship for people. It's just you need it to get tight so that nothing is really obviously sticking out. Some people say that will hurt the organic sound of the song, but you're not going to turn on the radio and hear anything that's coming out these days that isn't grid tight. So while most bands can probably do that, they practice really hard. A lot of times you just have some flubs even on super tight bands that need to get lined up a little bit so as to not be distracting from the song. So we're going to get kind of into it, listen to a couple of parts that I've identified, and show you some ways that you can edit some of your timing issues. So right here, I have picked right here this lead guitar part here. Pretty cool. Now listen to where it is in the song. This is not mixed. We're just getting our edits taken care of. So again, we don't have to do technical work while we're in the process of mixing, which is a very creative process. All right. So, as we can hear right there, I'll play it for you again. Nothing wrong with it. It probably slips by most people, but this little guitar lick starts a little late. And we're going to use the transients from our kick and snare, since I know that those were programmed in, and so they're on a grid for tempo. We're going to use them as our markers. So here we have our kick transient. It hits right on the 1. We're going to line it up there and see right here. See, he's a little bit late. Not by much, just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is we're going to trim this way up here. And use in Logic, that's a marquee tool that I hit Control to operate my second tool, and this guy just makes it real easy to cut out sections. In Pro Tools, there's things like tab transient, and you can use their tools to do this too. So this is just the concept is what's important. So let's listen here, see when we switch notes. All right, so our first note change comes right here. So I have this first note to play with to get us kind of lined up, and there's lots of ways you can do this, but one way I like to do it is I'm going to chop prior to that note hit and just kind of drag it over here so that it hits on time. And then I'm going to drag this piece out just a little, so there's a tiny little fade here so you won't hear the pop when it comes back in from an edit. And we just kind of stretched out to fill the space. So let's listen. Okay, now that should come in right on time with our drums, and it's not late. We'll use what we've got here so you can hear it better. So see, right on top of that kick. So we've got everything coming in together. It's real tight. So that's our first edit. And these are very similar principles that you can use for many and all of these edits. And marked off a second guitar hit here. So in some of these guitar lines that were absolutely played live, played well, you see there are some places where you'll have some line noise or pick noise or string noise that will cause certain hits to be off time, and the ends of these notes will come off at different times. So see, they're a little bit off, and that could be distracting during a mix. So we'll come down to this guy here. He's really a lot more obvious. Let's see, we have a hit here and a hit here. We'll go ahead and cut right here. Cut out this noise at the top here. Out here. And if you're ever going to do any kind of time stretching on some of these just to make your edits fit, which in this case we won't, but just a pro tip, your time edits, as in time stretch and some other things, you want to make sure that you're cutting these sections out so that you're not time stretching an entire track. You're just time stretching your small sections. We're not doing that here, but just so you know. All right, so I've got a snare hit right here. Right here. And we're going to use that as our transient that is on time. And this guy is way in the front. So let's go ahead and just drag him back, line him up with the other. Get in here. Fade both of these at the same time. And let's see what we've got. Make it easier to hear, we'll turn the vocals off. They all hit at the same time. Whereas before, just for example, let me even pan them to make it more obvious for people with headphones. You can very clearly hear the right one coming in early. So we're just going to line those guys back up. Check us right there. Now we have lined up edits for these guitar hits because we want them to be tight and don't want it to be too distracting. All right. And I have another example marked off for a vocal edit where we have a vocal that comes in not quite as tight as it could be. Let's turn these guitars down so they're not distracting. All right, so escape, the percussive part, cape, is a little bit behind the beat, which is fine if that's artistic, but these rock songs tend to be really lined up tight. So that's what we're going to go with. And we have our kick transient here. Oh, where'd it go? There's our kick transient. Grab that there. Use that as our marker. And I'm going to chop this word. And in this case, we ought to be able to just line it up, trim it back without any kind of weird time edit, like our first example. And the escape should line up right on top of this kick, giving it a lot more percussive effect, tightness. One more time, we'll put this on. And we will escape from. Yep. So that is pretty tight through there. Trust me and we will escape from. Right on top of it. That's good. Okay. So that's how we handle a lot of small edits, time edits. There's a lot all through the song that I will clean up, and I've already cleaned up, but I wanted to guide you through this section using this as an example. So the next thing you want to do is pitch correct. There's a few things you can do. Some DAWs have plugins that will do this for you to a degree. So like Logic has this pitch correction, and what this plugin does is it just kind of grabs notes that are a little out and kind of guides them back depending on how fast you have this response turned up and down. So if it's fast response, it'll get on it, and it'll sound really computery if you go too fast. And you can turn off the notes that you know that may or may not be in the song, and so it won't pitch correct to other notes, or you can grab all these scales and pick your keys. We're not going to do that, though, because sometimes it can sound too robotic. But just so you know, that's an option. I'll use that on flutes and wind instruments and string instruments and live brass. Some of these instruments that are generally played in relation to other instruments, and sometimes they just need a little bit of fine-tuning, and that's what this is good for. or if someone's really super tight on their pitch, this can help kind of just rein it in a little bit. So, but what we're going to do is on a couple of these lines, it's a little flat here, a little sharp there. Good vocal track, good performance, but sometimes you just need to get your notes more spot on. So we're going to look at the track itself. So you can, in Logic, you can just double click on a track and it'll bring up track view. And this little infinity wave is how we use flex anything in Logic. So right now it's set to a rhythmic transient cutting type logarithm, and so we're going to change it to an algorithm for pitch, and it analyzes our track and shows us all of the pitches that are present in this song. So here's every word, every note, all the way down. Now there's a few words of caution here. Once you start this process, don't go cutting sections up because it will change the time stretch algorithm for the pitch. So if you're going to, in the event, like I said, there's certain sections where I really want to go in and fix a couple of things, I will chop those sections out, put them on a new track like this, chop it, turn that off, chop it, add a brand new track just like it, and I will put it down here, and then turn this back on and do the editing separately for this section. So think about that when you're going to do this. Separate it out so it has less processing that the computer has to do to manage the pitch and the vibrato and everything else. I'm going to back this up and put it all back together just for time's sake on this video. All right, so here we are with our track again. Okay, so right here, we're going to use this example because this song, key of E, does not have an F in it. Now on the left side, you can see our keyboard here where it denotes these notes C, D, E, F. Well, I just know that in the key of E, there's no F. And this is where a little theory knowledge will come in for you producers. And so I'm going to grab this F, and we're going to see kind of what we can do with it. The rest of these are pretty where they should be, but these F notes, not really spot on. But she nailed this C sharp. It's only off by a little bit, almost a pitch you almost can't hear, and her vibrato keeps it there. So we don't need to do a ton of manipulation, but we need to do something about these notes. So let's see, F. You can grab it and drag it, and then there's our friend the fine pitch, and this will help us move it. See, very tiny amounts. Also in this, you have vibrato that you can remove and add back. We're not going to touch that just yet. So let's see kind of what this sounds like. All right. Well, we could try a lower note. I think I like the F sharp better. I think that's more what was intended here. And we'll line this one up too. But I want to discuss kind of this line that's going through here. That determines our pitch, and these blocks are kind of an average of what's happening in this line. So some of these I'm not too concerned about changing because see here, this pitch goes up a little bit, but it also mainly remains on this F sharp note. This one right here, it stays kind of in the line, and I don't want to alter some of these things too much because pitch correction like this can add artifacts to your sound. Pops, gurgles, it can start to sound really fake, and we don't want that. We want it to just be correct, but not fake and robotic. So in the case of, say, this note right here, let's listen again what we have.
Can't stick around, have to keep.
Maybe E is more appropriate.
Can't stick around, have to keep.
Yeah, let's go with E, and we'll keep this at F sharp. So sometimes if the vibrato brings you too away from the middle, directly across the middle of these blocks is the perfect line for the pitch. So if I drag this out, that is the perfect line for the pitch. Put that vibrato back. So in the case of this one, this part of the note dips way out, and this is way above. And so I can either try to line it up here visually and put that here and not worry about the dip into the note below it, or you could try to manage it with your vibrato. So I'm just going to pull it in just a little bit, not much, and see what we end up with.
Can't stick around, have to keep.
Okay, not bad. So down here, I'm going to slide these up a little bit, put them closer to where they are. And this, again, this takes an average. So this note says it's an F, but you'll see that most of this actual pitch down here is down in E. So let's do a little bit of manipulation here and see if this actually sounds right. Use your ears.
Can't stick around, have to keep moving on.
That actually sounds pretty good. So I'm not worried about moving the block to where it is correct. I'm worried about the actual pitch, fitting into the key, fitting into the chord. And so since the pitch is down here in E, I'm not worried about manipulating this too much. But this definitely needed to come up for its slide up to the note she's trying to go to.
Can't stick around, have to keep moving on.
All right, this is pretty good. That is a really basic overview of flex pitch in Logic or other things like Melodyne or Autotune and how you can use them. You can also use the side to slide these in case you have a rhythm issue. But in this case, we didn't. It sounded pretty good. I've already gone through and pitch corrected everything and done edits on a separate session so that we can move right into mixing at the next episode, and we don't have to go through and edit the entire song. But I wanted to give you an overview of why you should chop and time stretch and move the things you need to move to make the song sound tight, basic timing edits. And I wanted to give you a quick overview of pitch correction and how you can use these tools and some of the tips that I've learned over the years of trying to edit pitch to keep it sounding realistic, not robotic. And as always, just remember, when you're doing things like pitch correction, use your ears. These are tools that will help us. These are tools that can help fix some issues. You need a good performance in the first place. You need quality singing, and it's got to be pretty close, because if you have to move these things too far, you're going to end up with pops, artifacts, gurgles, robotic sounding things. So pitch correction isn't a way to get around a bad vocal performance. It's a way to just kind of correct and enhance a pretty good one. My advice to producers is always go get another take if it is too bad. Do not try to fix it later. Get it right at the microphone with the singer. This is super important. You will be pulling your hair out, just completely exhausted and frustrated with having to try to pitch correct a bad track and make tons and tons and tons of changes, and then you can't fix the track once you've got all these weird pops and sounds, and it's too much for your computer to work with and process all at the same time. And when you're done with pitch correcting, you're going to want to print that track with the pitch correction in it so that you're not constantly running your CPU processing the entire time you're trying to mix, adjusting pitch and making these corrections and always running your hardware too hot. So again, try to get a great recording and a great take and a great performance in key, and then just use these tools to help you fine-tune it. And no matter what the screen says, always use your ears. You'll know when something sounds bad with enough practice, or when something sounds good, even if it technically shouldn't. And I just want to make sure we knew how to do that on this edit portion. So you've got prep so far, we've done some edits, and then now we should be ready to start our mix on the next episode. If you found this helpful or interesting, then please subscribe and go to traymixes.com and grab a free ebook there about a certain tool that I like to use a lot in mixing that really adds a lot of pop and character. Make sure you come back for the next one. Subscribe and hit the notification bell again so you get the notification every week when these come out, and follow along as we mix this song. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.